silent echoes. The air in the small village of Eldenbrook had always carried whispers, but only a few people ever claimed to hear them. The elders said the land itself spoke, but no one had ever figured out exactly what it was trying to say. Nestled in the heart of a dense forest, far from the bustle of cities, Eldenbrook was a place that had never really moved forward with the world. Time seemed to hang heavy in the air, suspended like the mist that clung to the valley every morning. For as long as she could remember, Isabel had heard the whispers. As a child, she thought it was normal, that everyone else could hear the faint murmurs when the wind blew or when the creek gurgled late at night. It wasn't until she was older that she realized the voices weren't speaking to everyone, just her. The whispers were low and indistinct, like echoes from another world. Sometimes they seemed to be right beside her, other times far off in the distance. They were never threatening, but always urgent, as if pleading with her to understand something she couldn't quite grasp. By the time she reached 20, the whispers had grown louder and more insistent, haunting her dreams and filling her waking moments with a deep sense of unease. She tried to ignore them, focusing on her mundane life as a seamstress in the village, but the voices wouldn't let her rest. They followed her everywhere, into the forest when she gathered herbs, along the riverbanks when she washed clothes, and even into her quiet moments of solitude in the small stone house she shared with her grandmother, Alara. Alara was a stern woman, but kind in her own way. She had raised Isabel since she was a baby after Isabel's parents disappeared one stormy night, never to return. The village had whispered about that night for years, but no one spoke of it directly to Isabel. And whenever Isabel asked her grandmother about it, Alara's face would harden, and she would change the subject. One evening, as a cold autumn breeze swept through the village, Isabel found herself standing at the edge of the forest, staring into the darkened trees. The whispers were stronger than ever. They were calling her. She could feel it deep in her bones, a pull she had never felt before. Her feet moved of their own accord, carrying her deeper into the woods than she had ever dared to go. The forest was alive with sounds, twigs snapping underfoot, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl. But beneath it all, the whispers remained, growing clearer with every step. "Find us," they seemed to say. "We are here." Isabel's heart raced, but she pressed on, following an invisible path through the trees until she came upon a small clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone, covered in moss and strange markings. The whispers were loud now, almost deafening, but they were no longer just echoes. They were voices she recognized. Isabel, the sound of her name sent a shiver down her spine. She stepped closer to the stone, her fingers trembling as she reached out to touch the cold surface. The moment her skin made contact, a flood of memories surged through her. Images of her parents, of their final moments in the storm all those years ago. She saw them standing in this very clearing, facing the stone, their faces full of sorrow and fear. They were speaking to it, pleading for something. And then she understood. The stone was not just a relic of the past. It was a gateway, a connection between worlds. Her parents had been trapped here, their souls caught between life and death, their voices carried on the wind in an endless loop. The whispers she had heard all her life were the echoes of their voices, calling out to her, trying to reach her. Tears streamed down Isabel's face as the truth hit her with full force. They had never abandoned her. They had been here all along, waiting for her to find them, to set them free. "What do I do?" she whispered, her voice shaking. In the silence that followed, the whispers faded, replaced by a single clear voice, her mother's voice. "Break the circle." Isabel looked down at the base of the stone, where a ring of small stones lay in a perfect circle. With trembling hands, she bent down and began to move them, one by one, disrupting the ancient barrier that had held her parents captive for so long. As the last stone was moved, the air around her shifted. The forest grew still, and for the first time in her life, there was silence. The whispers were gone, but in their place, she felt something else, a warmth, a lightness, as if the very air around her had been lifted of a great burden. Isabel stood, wiping the tears from her cheeks, and looked up at the sky. The stars shone brighter than she had ever seen them, and in that moment, she knew her parents were finally at peace. She turned and walked back through the forest. The weight of the past lifted from her shoulders. The village of Eldenbrook slept quietly as she returned, but everything felt different now. The silence was no longer haunting. It was peaceful. From that night on, Isabel never heard the whispers again. But she didn't need to. She had found the answers she had been searching for, and with them, a sense of closure that would carry her through the rest of her days. The echoes of the past were finally silent, but the peace they left behind was more powerful than words ever could be.